Bună seara, doamnelor și domnilor, și bun găsit la o nouă ediție a emisiunii Maramuresul azi. Invitatul din această seară este ambasadorul Federației Ruse la București, domnul VALERY KUZMIN. Îi spunem bună seara și bun găsit. Your Excellency, welcome in Maramureș, and thank you for granting us the opportunity of this interview. Please tell our viewers what the purpose of your visit is in this part of Romania in Maramureș County.
Thank you very much for this opportunity as well. I am happy to greet the TV spectators of Maramureș, and my visit, of course, it is a result of my interest, first of all, to learn more about Romania, to get acquainted with this rather distant from Bucharest region of this country, which is characteristic with ethnic diversity, which has a specific historical past, and evidently has some potential for development of business and trade relations between our two countries.
After some interviews you gave recently in the Romanian media and the meeting with the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Tudor Meleșcanu, how would you describe the diplomatic relations between our two countries?
I am very satisfied with the contents and, if you like, the mood that dominated our conversation with Mr. Meleșcanu, and I hope that this will be a good impact for resumption, for reactivating of substantial dialogue through the diplomatic channels, through the interparliamentary channels between our two countries, because evidently dialogue is much better than polemics, in particular polemics through mass media, and we are sure that this dialogue will bring better understanding of our positions on both sides, and will provide favorable conditions, favorable environment for promotion of our business ties and commercial cooperation.
What is your opinion, Mr. Ambassador, about the recent protests we see almost every day and the ideas that gather people in the street in front of the Romanian government building? And how would you characterize the DNA activity against corruption?
I would like only to reiterate, to repeat the same position that I have already stated to many mass media outlets in Romania, that domestic legislation, domestic events, interior events in any country, it is the matter of sovereignty of every nation, and we are pursuing consistent policy of non-intervention into the domestic affairs of any nation, whether it was about legislation, whether it is about government, whether it is about anything else. As for fighting corruption, well, we're in one and the same club, Russia as well, though I can't recollect any vicinity, any location in the world where corruption is non-existent. It is eternal evil. We are fighting against it, and indeed in modern history we have more effective methods of fighting it. And in this regard we are in the same camp with the Romanian nation, which doesn't accept corruption. As for other things, it is not our matter. It is our consistent policy. We are dealing with legitimately elected government in each and every country.
What is your opinion about the presence of the NATO anti-missile shield in the Veselu in Romania? Do you consider it part of a new Cold War plan?
I don't believe that it is a part of a new Cold War plan. The problem is, if you are really interested in it, in the difference of our points of view, in difference of perception of this deployment. About Romanian position, I won't tell you, you know it better than me. But Russian Federation, the Russian Federation sees this deployment in the much wider, if you like, in the global context. As far as for decades, since 50s, the 50s of previous century, of the 20th century, there gradually formed and was established a global balance of strategic security based on the nuclear deterrence. And towards the end of that Cold War, maybe you remember, there was a series of strategic arms control treaties signed between the Soviet Union and the United States. And one of the pivotal, one of the most important treaties among them was so-called ABM Treaty, Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. Why it was signed? It was signed because while security relies upon approximative balance of nuclear forces, neither of the sides should possess an effective anti-ballistic missile so that to prevent destructive, intolerable damage counterattack in case it is attacked by the other side. This was the idea of the global security at that time. More or less, the same philosophy, the same meaning of that global security remains in our days, so to say, on the ground. When about now over 10 years ago, we were informed by our American partners that they are going to deploy elements of their global anti-ballistic missile system all over Europe, we vocally expressed our discontent, our disagreement with those plans, because they were going to destroy that strategic global balance. Later, still, we continued negotiating with the United States for nuclear reductions, and the most recent treaty is dated only about 7 years before. It was 2010, I believe. So the overall volume of nuclear arsenals was diminished gradually. And the more important becomes the factor of anti-ballistic missile defense. Yes, that is why when this deployment took place in Romania, of course, it couldn't pass unnoticed by the Russian Federation. We have to take response measures on the Russian territory so that to prevent any negative effect of this deployment for our strategic security potential. That's it.
Okay, after Donald Trump's election, do you believe that a whole new rapport between the two countries, the USA and Russia, will be established?
You know, there is much speculation about this topic, and what I can tell you only that this speculation, unfortunately, is coming from those circles in the West, in particular from the so-called mainstream media, which have contributed as much as they were able to spoil relations between the Russian Federation and the Soviet Union at that time, now the Russian Federation and the United States. Our stand in connection with the election and now already with the presidency of Mr. Donald Trump in the United States is that we were open and ready to do it with the previous administration, which was unwilling to do it. We are ready and we are open to resume, to restart this process with the current administration. As our president formulated it, to put back on track our relations, to liberate those relations, from overloading of inexplicable in modern world ideological animosity to make them pragmatic, based on overlapping and common interests, bringing them closer or concentrating them on many global challenges that our mankind is now facing, starting from international terrorism, destructive existential threat to the whole humanity, in particular to the European civilization. I'm sorry, the United States being a part, an offspring of that very European civilization, and so on and so forth. Those challenges are many, and with the balance of force and power having evolved towards a multi-center, multipolar structure in the world, we are sure that only network diplomacy, only synergy of efforts of different powers, including the United States and Russia, People's China, European Union, others, we can face those challenges, starting from global heating and coming to
yes. In that case, in Russia's opinion, what are the new dangers that threatens global security, and
I believe I have already answered this question.
Yeah.
We believe that in the first place, now the most vital danger to the whole mankind, it is international terrorism. But it is not the only one. Danger, not the only one threat. A significant threat to the global stability and global security is desire of certain circles in different countries to obtain some sort of supremacy, in particular in the global balance of strategic security elements, as we have just discussed. Otherwise, we are sure that, as it has been for many times in the past, starting, for example, from the Second World War, when at that time really antagonistic ideological political powers, like, for example, Soviet Union preaching the communist doctrine, British Empire, French Republic, United States, French Colonial Republic and British Colonial Empire, with the United States being beyond the ocean and preferring at the first stage not to intervene, and only after Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor starting the war, there was an if you like, militarism, anti-fascist, anti-Nazi coalition formed. This is a brilliant example when now we have much less difference between us. There is no communist ideology ruling in the Russian Federation. We are looking at and we are ready to address and face the same challenges of to the global security and global stability. The only thing is the goodwill, political will. We have plenty.
So you are a fine connoisseur of the relationship between the Republic of Moldova and Romania. Do you see any incompatibility between the goals of some politicians from both countries to see Moldova reunited with Romania in the near future?
You are reproducing this question, I mean the Romanian mass media, with slight differences. What I can tell you, I am not an expert on the relations between Romania and Moldova. Such experts should exist here in Romania and there in Moldova. As a diplomat, of course, I am following the relations between your countries. What I can tell? I can tell only one thing, that if two nations, meaning the people and meaning the states, wants to establish close relations, they should respect democratically expressed free will of both nations. Now we have, I know that most commentary and most of the emotion was brought, has been brought by election of Mr. Igor Dodon to the presidency of Moldovan people. But we shouldn't forget that it was for the first time in modern Moldovan history when a head of the state was elected by the direct popular vote. So it should be respected. What to do? It is not a question to Russian diplomacy. It is for your politicians, for your diplomats to find the ways and means.
Thank you. A final question. From an economical point of view, how do you think Russia can help the Romanian economy and especially the development of our country, Maramureș?
I would say that Russia is interested in pragmatic, mutually beneficial trade and economic exchanges in many other forms of cooperation which exist between us, not only in the economic field but in the scientific field. When I met the president of your academy, Mr. Vlad, he told me about very rich experience, very rich past and hopefully future of our scientific exchanges. We have good academic ties between our universities. We have many other opportunities. In this regard, I believe that these relations will be helpful for Romanian development as well. And if we try and succeed in coming back a little bit, though you know that history has no such a mode of winding back the tape or the disc, but still coming back and profit from certain ideas that were elaborated some years ago. There was a special document in the framework of our joint Russian-Romanian or Romanian-Russian Intergovernmental Commission for Economic, Scientific and Technical Cooperation. It was a kind of a roadmap, a kind of a plan of partnership between our countries on innovations, on updating, modernization of economies of both countries.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. Aceasta a fost ediția de astăzi a emisiunii Maramureșul azi cu Excelența sa, Ambasadorul Federației Ruse la București. Vă mulțumesc foarte mult pentru atenție. O seară frumoasă în continuare. La revedere!